Good morning and hello. Hi, welcome to AMA Puget Sound's Coffee Talk series. Our guest today is Mike Zaruba. Did I say that right?
You did, yes.
Perfect. Mike is a seasoned digital client executive and consultant with more than 12 years of experience in CMS, commerce, DAM, PIM, personalization, and more. Hello.
Hello.
And want
Thank
to learn
you.
more in the description.
Thank you for that. Yeah, a lot of acronyms there. I'm sure marketers and individuals listening to this are familiar with what those mean, but happy to talk a little further if you want me to explain those acronyms.
Yeah, we have a couple folks. They are new to marketing
Hmm.
or they have an interest in marketing. So, yeah, not everybody here is a marketer. So, if you could go ahead and explain CMS, DAM, and PIM.
Sure.
Once.
Without going into depth in necessarily any single one of them, CMS is content management system, PIM is product information management, and DAM is digital asset management. All those things work in tandem together. CMS tends to be the more standalone component, so you can do a lot with those solutions, but PIM and DAM for more advanced and mature organizations when it comes to marketing and product content and things of that nature tend to get more into those PIM and DAM systems.
Right. And that's where you're like things that you're going to be measuring, which is what we're really going to be talking about. So,
Mm-hmm.
that works perfectly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're going to be today talking about two topics. These are topics that kind of they change, not changed. At least the analytics piece changes because we're getting new information, we're getting new access to new data. Old data is going out, and it's continually changing. Testing is ever changing because we're dealing with humans and what they like, what they don't like, and what they like at that moment, and what trends. What's fun. It's all fun stuff. But we want to kind of get into it. There are a lot of folks out there that they're kind of new, like I said, and they're
Mm-hmm.
learning how to do it, or they're seasoned, but just need a refresher, just need a little inspiration. So that's why we're here.
Awesome. Happy to have this conversation. I'm really excited.
Absolutely, and thank you for being here, Mike. So when it comes to data and specifically knowing how to collect it, because that's one part of it, and then what to do with it, this is a whole big question, but what are some of the challenges marketers are facing with collecting the data and then what to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a very big question, and it's a really analytics and measurement and personalization and all of that stuff and how that all comes together is a really broad topic and can get into the weeds, especially industry specific as well, because something a retailer versus a professional services organization or a healthcare organization, they all need to be able to measure and understand their data and their analytics. But what they measure is very different. So, but broadly speaking, there are a lot of challenges that are the same across all organizations seeking to do analytics and have a good program. So I'll kind of take one step back and talk about kind of the phrase "measure twice, cut once." Now, really, like that does originate to carpentry, is very specific around ensuring a permanent mistake isn't made. But like what's wonderful in this day and age and like really in heavy digital is that few things are truly permanent. And actually, there are many things that shouldn't be permanent, at least when it's related to marketing, commerce, content, all those different things that we like to talk about. When it comes to analytics and really how a business might want to make a decision, really being informed and armed with good, relevant data and information analytics allows you to, rather than measure just twice, measure often, and also take those measurements and reevaluate those measurements over time. Measuring often allows you to make, many little cuts that optimize some of the smaller bits that add up to those broader metrics that really are drivers of impact for your organization. I'll kind of come back to what good and relevant mean here in a second, but do want to
Sure.
talk about specifically like challenges first.
Yeah,
One of the first things I think is really like perception that ROI is really impossible to find when it comes to customer experience. That's not necessarily true, but it is hard to find. Customer experience doesn't really have a direct one-to-one relationship with finance all the time, and really connecting the financial and experience dots can really be a challenge. Another challenge is lack of data as well. A lot of organizations have some, but it's not necessarily actionable, or they're not necessarily understanding it. And I think page views is a great example, because everyone's like, yeah, no, I got a lot of page views. Things are going great. It's like, yes, things are going great for page views, but what do those page views lead to? How are individuals coming to the site? Like, those are great details to have, but the lack of understanding about like how you're obtaining those page views and what's happening after you get the view, like, are they converting, for example, is a good question to ask. But again, not page views don't equal conversions, and conversions also don't equal page views.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
Go ahead.
tying to money.
Mm-hmm.
Tying to the budget and the overall goal, I think is something that needs to be discussed as well. So I just want to throw that in there. But
No,
budget.
it really is, and budgets are a huge challenge when it comes to analytics programs as well, because everybody wants to do it, but I don't want to put anyone on the spot. I'm not going to, but no one wants to really pay for it.
Yes.
I've heard a lot of like, we really need to do this, and we really need to, have really good data in place and make good decisions, but I can't get the budget to get a strong program in place, or, I can't convince people that we have the wrong data or we're measuring the wrong thing. So we need to take a second look at it because we've already invested in a program. And, that is absolutely a challenge in terms of not just like the tying to financial, but like the getting the buy-in to do that as well.
Absolutely. And I can say I've faced that working in nonprofit before, where marketing gets zero budget, like you're MacGyvering everything and it's going to break at any moment, but you're doing it and it's working. You're gathering all of the data that you can in which ways you can, usually the free versions of things. But so that was always a challenge for me. And how do you approach that? Like there are some, like you just said, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, like some just don't want to pay for it. Okay, that's a fact. But then there are some where it's like, we're barely keeping the lights on, but we need this analytics so we can make further plans. How do you respond to those folks?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think the short answer is do what is available out there and free, right? Google Analytics is a great place every organization should start. And if they aren't there, they need to get there. Everything, like you can become a practitioner of Google Analytics without having to drop a dime. Then it gets into the practice of actually analyzing the data and understanding the trends from it. But in terms of being able to gather it, know how to put together the broad strokes of what you should measure on your site and how it can be measured, I suggest investing personal time in doing that, or professional time as well, right? Within your I can't speak for the world of marketers out there and individuals who want to do this that don't have budget for it, but it's starting small and growing incrementally. Like you can't turn on analytics and expect it to work. You can't say, I'm going to, take a single course and be an expert. Like you have to practice it. You have to learn it. And yeah, it's just take the time to figure that out in the free options that are available. That is the short answer. It might not be the answer everyone wants to hear, but that is, it's practice and it's doing it.
Absolutely. And I think, what is it? It takes 1,000 hours to become an expert on something.
I thought it was 10,000 hours.
10 hours. I may be missing a zero. Probably right. I'm taking the shortcut, apparently.
I mean, 1,000 hours is still good. That's 1,000 more hours than someone else has. So don't sell 1,000 hours short.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. We're going to go with 10,000. That feels more comfortable.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about it, but like, what do we do with the data? Like, let's say you are a small bakery, what data should you be collecting compared to, a tailor?
Right. Yeah.
Where these are coming from.
That's like a tailor and a baker. It's two very, actually it's kind of funny. You bring like a tailor and a baker up, because I can see those two shops being next to each other in like my hometown. Right. And so they're going to have a lot of the same overlap of customers. But I get what you're saying. Maybe I'll take baker and tailor out of it and think about like broad strokes of different organizations, what they should be looking for. Like, let's take retailers, for example.
Sure.
Like a retailer, they're going to be really high on conversion rate and cart abandonment rate, and understanding potentially what where are people dropping off the site in their experience, right? Where are people bouncing away? Are they leaving checkouts open? And say like an organization who is driven by leads, like a lead driven organization, a professional services organization like the one I work for, right? Obviously we look at metrics that tie up to revenue, but like when it comes to our site, like how are we getting leads that are coming into our site? Are they converting and completing a lead form? Are they then interacting with the download that we've sent them because they've completed a lead form? Are they continuing to engage with us over time? And there's different lead scoring tactics that can be put into place with other marketing tools, but you think about those two organizations, two types of companies, retailer and professional services. And at the end of the day, they all want to impact their bottom line, but you have to go about it in a very different way.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They have to, and knowing your customer, knowing who's walking through your door or coming to your website is extremely important, because customers can tell when you don't know anything about them or what they're looking for, and they get frustrated when they're trying to find something on your page and they can't find it. So knowing your customer.
Yes. On the flip side of that, knowing your customer too well can be really off-putting at the same time. If you come to your site, they've got your name and like everything personalized in there. It can be like, whoa, I don't remember signing up for this too. So like with, like all things, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes,
with great data comes great responsibility. Use that the right way.
Exactly. It was mentioned in the last episode, but the Super Bowl commercial with Scarlett Johansson and Colin Jost, where basically their I'm not going to say it, but their device, their home device, kind of took on a personality and just became very creepy. And if you haven't seen it yet, it's very well done, considering the fact that Scarlett was in a movie where she was the voice. Very fun connection. But anyway,
right?
I believe so. Yeah,
yes,
I didn't see it yet, but I heard it was good. It's on my list. So yeah, I mean, because if you do horrible things, you're going to get movies made of what you're doing. So with all of this analytics, you're gathering all of it. So, how can setting up a program for analytics really help a business, small business, large business, startup, nonprofit, guide them in making better decisions?
Yes. So I mean, like that is primarily the primary reason why you want to invest in an analytics program, is so that you can make decisions that are backed by data. If you're making decisions based on emotion or feel or like historical context, like, yeah, you might hit on the right thing and you might be able to, find some success. But when you start to look at the data and you look at the right data to make a good decision, that's going to help with short, mid, and long-term planning. And allow organizations to continue to invest in other areas as well, because when it's a cascading effect. Once you start making data informed decisions, you almost can't stop. Like you'll start to rethink some of the things you thought about a year ago and be like, why did I make that decision? That's the opposite of what the data is telling me. And so even if you're just starting out, even if you're that person who's like, I've got 30 minutes in the first Google Analytics training session, I've just installed it, to start tracking things on my site, even that starts to be powerful. Even if you're not fully understanding the context of the data that you're seeing, you can start to see trends. You can start to see how things are impacting your site, and you can start to at least be better informed about how you communicate things internally as well. So I think purely at the forefront, just start using that data. Return on investment is a huge pain point that businesses try to answer. And I mentioned that customer experience is a hard thing to try to quantify. And, for organizations that might have a more mature budget, I would recommend getting an outside perspective on your analytics program or on your data and start to, see beyond the four walls that A lot of times businesses can have, unfortunate, unnecessary or not intended blinders on to how outside forces impact what are the performance of their business. And they really do know what is tried and true for the business. They know their customer, they know what they're coming for. But maybe they're missing trends that would allow them to expand their customer base, or maybe, increase the customer lifetime value of a customer. And I think that's a piece that is a high impact revenue that while is tied to revenue, is not directly tied to it in the same way that a conversion rate is tied to it. And I think if you start to measure customer lifetime value, then and figure out the right way to measure it, right? Because it's obvious for a retailer, customer lifetime value is how many products did you purchase with us over time, and how much of the value of the products is that worth to you and to us. But for an organization like that captures that isn't selling a specific thing online like that, there's a different ladder up for that lifetime value of how you evaluate what a customer means to you. But I think that that's something that can get missed in that, the forest for the trees type of analogy, like revenue versus customer lifetime value as a high impact thing. Like it's a no-brainer to measure that stuff for retailers, but it can often be overlooked in favor of like I want it now type of metric. Like, why is my conversion rate down last month? Like, maybe it was down last month because, COVID, or because of other, worldly global forces that are enacting us right now. And take a look at like over the term, is like a single conversion worth more to you now, or is 10 conversions worth more to you in 12 months? Right. And if you start to think about that in the context of the whole, that can bring some really powerful data-driven decisions to be made now to support your business for the long term.
Right, exactly. And most marketers, I feel, are planning for the long term, because we know it's going to be one campaign after another, and each campaign is going to be different. Each is going to have its own results, its own surprises.
Yeah.
You're continually learning from it. So the goal, hopefully, with each campaign, you're growing.
Right.
So we know it's a long game. However, we do sometimes have to answer to folks above us that sign our checks that say, well, we need this right now. And you do what you can, but realize that when you do go for those short-term customer gains, are those the quality? I'm kind of repeating what you're saying, but are those the quality customers you want?
Right.
An example, I think I was sharing this before we went live. I worked for a bank in Green Bay, and one of the things that they did was, if you sign up for a checking account and go through these 5 things, such as set up direct deposit and, set this up and do your online banking and qualify for all of this, we'll send you a voucher for a free jersey from the team store. And you had to go through all these hoops, and it was just, we didn't get the quality customers we wanted. They just wanted that jersey, and as soon as they got it, they bounced. I see that a lot with, say, Chase Bank. They offer that $100 and whatnot. And yeah, is it worth it? You spend all of that marketing, you spend all of that time, effort, planning. Is it worth it, rather than just keeping your customers happy?
Yeah, totally. And I think I want to call back a little bit to when we were first started the session here. I mentioned good and relevant as terms of types of analytics that you should be looking into. That's a challenge, like measuring or putting too much stake in the wrong types of analytics. And good meaning, is it a true metric? Are you looking at the right length of time for a particular data set? Is the data biased? Is it a large enough or small and manageable enough data size? Because sometimes, I encounter this in my role regularly, and when we are beginning an analytics type of engagement, say, hey, give us all the data that you have. We might actually mean that, because we are experts at consuming large swaths of that data, and we want to be given more than we can handle so that we can narrow that focus down. Because when we can see everything that is possibly being consumed by a client of ours, we can say, well, you're looking at too much, and you are missing the forest for the trees, because you're only looking at a couple of metrics, but you're not seeing these other ones that really impact everything. And so that's a piece as well. And then the relevant side of that is the data contextualized. Are you looking at data from 2018 and trying to understand trends that are going to happen in 2023? Like, that's not contextualized. Does it take global forces into account of COVID or what's happening in the political realm? Is it data that you're looking at actually related to the problem you're wanting to solve, or the goal you're trying to hit? Or are you just so laser focused on that one key metric that it's challenged to get outside of that? So to your comment on, or your analogy on getting, those customers, are you getting the right customers? That's another piece to look at too. Like, are those one and dones? Do they have a good customer lifetime value? Are they loyal to you? Do you make it easy? How many steps does it take to get to the end result that you're trying to get to? And what is that end result as well?
Yeah, exactly. So I want to kind of go back to goal setting, because that's all part of it, because you can have all the analytics you want, and you can look at all the data, you can see all the patterns, but without goals, what are you doing? So what are the best ways to use the results of the analytics to set your goals? If you're just starting at the very beginning and you're like, this is new to me, I don't know what I'm doing, where do you start? And then compared to, say, a larger group where they're continually setting goals, do you make any changes?
Yeah. So in terms of goal setting, the first step, if you're starting from nothing, right, is to get a baseline and not think about goals until you understand where you currently are. Because you can't set a goal without knowing what you're doing today, right? So take the time to know that an analytics, Rome wasn't built in a day. An analytics program wasn't built in a day. It's not going to be, it's going to take time. And I think that that's something that, again, the want it now type of mentality that I think persists within everything, really, can be a hindrance. And I think that pushback to say, hey, like, I know we need to set goals, but I also don't know where we are now to set those appropriate goals. And also, do the goals that my manager, my manager's manager have in mind align to what I'm able to achieve within my role? Or do I need to engage 3 other business units to support these goals as well? So I would, suggest and recommend for organizations that are really trying to start out is get a baseline and take that time and ask for the space to do it properly. I don't know what the right timeline is necessarily for every organization, but it has to be a significant amount. I think you're probably looking at 6 to 12 months to get a true proper baseline to account for things like seasonality, shifts in the general population about how a potential customer is coming to a site, things of that nature. And then from there, you can start to look at, well, where do we want to go to next? And you can start to see how to build a program based off of your baseline. So start first and ask for space to get the right goals in mind.
That sounds easy. That sounds easy. Like, you can do it. We can do it.
Yes, it can be done.
Yeah. So let's say you've got all that done. You've got your goals. You've achieved some goals. They were achievable, and you've set new ones. And now you're at a point where you have a pretty big sample size, say 1,000 or above. In fact, I actually want to ask you how big a sample size should be. But where does the A/B testing come in with all of that?
Right. So A/B testing or experimentation or test and learn, however you want to phrase it these days, that comes in for organizations who already have a good understanding of their analytics. It's not something I would recommend for an organization who's just starting out to say, I want to get into A/B testing. Like, you can, but again, you need the baseline. You need to have some goals to set, and you need to understand like what things are impacting your current metrics to be able to say, I want to run an experiment or an A/B test on a specific thing. And in the simplest version, I think people can think of an A/B test like this. Like, it's as simple as changing the color of the checkout now button is an A/B test. Is it red or is it blue? And you're going to send that out to, a segmented group, and you're going to see which performs better. You're going to take that, and then you're going to take whatever group performed better and put that into production of your site. You can continue to test that. Maybe I want to move that checkout button to the top or the bottom or the left or the right. But what if it's blue at the top, versus red at the bottom, and both perform well? So then you do another test related to that. Now it gets kind of complex in so much as how many different things you can ladder together and tie together to achieve those results, which is why organizations who are more mature can handle that type of thing, because they have a better concept and understanding of how customers are coming to their site and how they're using it to date.
Yeah, exactly. And this is so silly, but the way I like to think with A/B testing is getting new glasses, getting your new prescription.
A or B.
Exactly. And that's basically what you're doing, and you keep going. And obviously, because my eyes get worse every year, I need new glasses every year. So that's where the continual testing and continual checkup on that is very important, because I'm a believer in, don't test for the sake of testing. I mean, it's fun, don't get me wrong, but there needs to be a purpose.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. There does have to be a purpose for that. And it's, we talk about it, it's simply as like changing a button, and it is simple like that. But executionally speaking, how do you do that internally, and how do you make sure that like you're pulling the right data? You need other tools to do that, and there are A/B testing tools in the marketplace that do that very well. They're relatively straightforward to say implement. It's typically a piece of code for your site, but then managing that on the back end can get really complex. And so I don't want to make the mistake of saying, it's simple.
Right.
It's technically not, but it is very impactful if you've got an organization that is ready to make that jump into A/B testing to do.
Absolutely. And I will say, when I was an email marketing manager, MailChimp, they make it fun. Like if you aren't ready or comfortable to play with your website, play with one of your newsletters. And
Yeah.
if you have, and this is where I wanted to ask you, like, at least with MailChimp for A/B testing, they recommend at least a sample size of 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's going to be different, and that's probably going to vary by industry and company depending on how big their customer size is. But if you could say like in a percentage, would you say in a percentage of like how many customers of X corporation, or how would you recommend it to somebody who's interested?
I wish I had a better answer than it depends, because it really
I
does,
know.
unfortunately.
I know.
Like, and I think there is, when it's too small of a size, I'll say, for
Yeah.
your organization, but going back to kind of the size of the data, like you don't want it to expand too much, right?
Mhm.
And to your point, if you're one person in an organization analyzing the data and trying to gather things, and you're just starting out, like, yeah, start from the lower side of things and start to look at like what's a reasonable volume for your
Mhm.
site, right? Like if you're, say, getting, and I'm just going to pull round numbers out of the air, right? If you're getting 1,000 page views a month and you're trying to understand more information about what broad themes and trends can be brought out of it, maybe look at 10% of that, right? But if you're getting 100,000 page views a month and you're looking at 10% of that, that's 10,000. And
Yeah.
that might be too much for an individual to handle. Like, and again, I'm pulling round numbers and they're relatively small just to make them that way.
Mhm.
But again, 10,000 is much greater than 100, excuse me.
Sure.
And so, like, find the balance that works for you on the sample size,
Mhm.
and be able to know that, like, when you hit a certain point of diminishing returns, then that's kind of when you can kind of stop that there. Again,
Mhm.
dependent
Exactly.
on what you're measuring, why you're measuring, and how you're measuring it.
Absolutely. And so when you're doing all of this, or you're getting started with starting to measure, doing the A/B testing, what tools are
Mm-hmm.
available? What tools do you recommend? And you mentioned Google Analytics earlier. They do have the certification. It's easier than you think.
Yes.
I've done it. I do recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's outside of Google, Adobe, Tableau. What do you recommend?
Yeah. So, like, outside of those tools, I think that the best way to get more kind of return is looking outside of those specific analytics tools, because I say Google and Adobe, and you mentioned Tableau, great tools, and most organizations have those, and Google is the base version, free to
Mhm.
use, right? So, like, you shouldn't not be using those tools. Like, the ones that organizations aren't using get into kind of personalization or A/B testing and experimentation. Like,
Mhm.
so if you're an organization that does a lot of outbound, like MailChimp, a HubSpot, something like those types of engines, those have really interesting
Mhm.
low barrier to entry types of functionality related to A/B testing and personalization that you can use, that anybody who picks it up and takes a little bit of time can learn it. And, like, the lift will make a huge impact and difference over time if you invest in it. Tools that are a little bit more advanced, Optimizely is a really incredible tool. I am biased. I really like them as an organization, as a partner of Rightpoint's and a partner of mine, but they're a name brand for a reason. Like,
Mhm.
I personally have always thought of it, Optimizely as a great A/B testing
Yeah.
tool. And now that they've merged with what was formerly EpiServer, like, there's an incredible digital suite and
Ooh.
package together. CMS, commerce,
Mhm.
content recommendations. This is turning into an Optimizely advertisement. It's not meaning to,
It's not.
but
You're almost sponsored.
the tool is really strong, and you can
Yeah.
get their testing tool and product without having to invest in the rest of the suite of tools there. But it is it can provide such an impactful lift that, like, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it.
Mhm.
Specifically, like, also personalization engines that can plug and play with different CMS tools are really strong as well, to be able to control some of that customer data that you have in, say, your CRM, or a CDP platform, which is a customer data platform. Well, a customer data platform, excuse me.
Okay.
That's another tool that we didn't really touch on today, but also related to this. The space is maturing, and there are tools that I have, I've never heard of, that are out there that are
Yeah.
doing some really interesting stuff that, I highly recommend, based on the size and type of organization that you are, just doing some quick searches and looking into,
Mm-hmm.
what types of tools other organizations are using. Like,
Yep.
I know it seems silly to say, go look on Google, but go look on Google. Like, if you can, like, Google's such a powerful tool for this type of thing that
Yeah.
if you put a few key phrases in, and do the right kind of search parameters, you will be able to find advice and places to start on what you're looking for and how to get going without a deep level investment on extensive tools.
Right. It's a rabbit hole, quite honestly. I've fallen down it, I don't know how many times over the last 10 years. Like, and I'm always learning something. I mean, I don't want to say like, and I've said this before, but I'm really cocky when I say it. Like, if you've learned one system, you've learned another, which is not true. I don't want to say that. But at the same time, it's the intuition.
Yes,
That's
100%.
yeah, a lot of it, especially if it is drag and drop. I'm not a graphic designer, so I love Canva. But a lot of, they make it easy enough that it is intuitive enough because they are basing it off of each other. So
right.
it's, find one. I've always, I have a fake email address, not a fake one, but like one that I use just to test out a new system, just to play around with it. And just even doing that, I get inspired to do something else completely. So that's part of what you were saying earlier of just play with the thing and you'll become an expert after 10,000 hours.
Yeah. You just got to try. And I think that, there's some hesitancy to even dip a toe into it because it feels like such a complex topic and complex subject area to get into. And it's also one that is highly impactful as well. So there's also, I think, some anxiety around like, oh, well, what if I interpret this data wrong? I'm going to go back to one of the first things I said. You can measure often, and nothing in digital is really permanent. Right. So you can always revert, you can always change, you can always update. But if you're not continually measuring, you'll never know when to change or when to update or how to change or how to update.
Exactly. My head is buzzing.
Yes.
That's a lot of stuff. And I just want to give you a couple minutes. If there's anything that maybe we didn't go over or you'd like to reiterate, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think, the biggest piece I think I want to reiterate is good and relevant, right? Because we can always find data that we can look at and we can always try to glean insights from it. But it's really important to understand the goodness of your data and the relevancy of your data so that you can make the right decisions. Because if you're acting on bad but relevant data, you're not going to make as good of a decision as if you were acting on good and relevant data, and vice versa as well. So I think I can't hammer that home enough. Is make sure that it's the right information you're measuring.
And to measure often.
Yes, and measure often.
And you can update your plans. I mean,
yes,
it can change. Like your goals you may reach your goals and then you grow and you have a much bigger goal that you never even imagined before.
I know that's the best part of it is it builds on itself over time. And the more that you get into programs like this, the more enriching it comes for yourself because, you become a practitioner of it over time.
Exactly. This is so much good information. We could literally keep going. And I really, really appreciate your time today, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
I have all of his links and everything in the description below. Contact him if you want to talk more analytics and learn more from him. I do have a little call out for our chapter for AMA Puget Sound. We did soft announce last week, call for speakers for our Market Mix Conference, August 25th at Bell Harbor in Seattle. If you're interested in being a speaker, I do have a link below. It's on our homepage, actually, so you can't miss it. Like I said, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the like button and be sure to subscribe. We are very close to our goal of 100. I think we're only 8 away. So once we hit that, I've been saying this for months. Once we hit that 100 goal, I can update the URL. Big deal. Awesome. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Yeah, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.